All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here with your host, Richard Fu from therichardfu.com and The Ultimate Man. And today I got a special guest who's just come out from the deep rabbit holes of life. And not only that, he does this for a living too, right? He goes down into the rabbit holes to find rocks, guys. He's a geologist. And not only that, he's gone through into the rabbit holes of life and love, not once but twice, and come out to actually share with us the secrets and what it feels like when you claim to be, well, when you're probably seen as an expert, right? But then you go through a breakdown, right? It's cracking up in the background. And his name is Russell Rusky Price. Russell, good to have you on, brother.
Great to meet you, Richard, and big hello to everyone listening as well. It's an absolute thrill to be here.
Oh man, I'm excited to chat with you, man, just because of what we chatted about before the show. And so, Russell, man, for the people who don't know you and haven't heard of you before, could you give us a bit of a rundown of yourself, who you are, and where you're at right now?
Yeah, bit of my life story, bit of context for everyone. As you can tell from my accent, I'm Australian, and if you can see me, then I have very Asian features. My mum was Malaysian, my dad's Australian. So I grew up in Australia in pretty conservative backgrounds. Emphasis, I'm sure you can all relate, on academic excellence. Mm-hmm. And I played piano, I did a little bit of sport. I was very focused on school as part of the chess club, but didn't really fit in. Kind of struggled with that, but got the grades to get into law school and ended up doing geology. And if truth be told, I ended up doing geology because of two reasons. I wanted to travel, and the prettiest girl I could see was doing geology. So I ended up doing geology and graduated from that and thought, okay, this is my ticket to go and see places in the world where no one has ever been. And I did that. I went to work in the Tanami Desert in Western Australia, which is a desert, Northern Territory, which is a desert surrounded by deserts. I ended up working in Saudi Arabia, in the jungles of the Congo, and in West Africa and Liberia and Guinea. And I went to some of these places which no one has ever been. And I got there and I kind of realized why no one's ever been there to some of these places. But that said, I've had some incredible adventures. Along the way, I've kind of had a couple of lives. When I first started geology, I left that because being in the kind of the 9-to-5 world wasn't really bringing me happiness after having done the school uni. The path to happiness, as we get sold, is kind of school, uni, job, maybe PhD, 2.5 kids, a wife, and a swimming pool. And that didn't work for me. So after 2 years on the job as a geologist, the first time I left, I followed my passion, which was natural therapies. And I studied Tai Chi, I studied meditation, I studied energy healing, I studied kinesiology, NLP, hypnotherapy, 4 different styles of massage, Qigong. I ended up teaching most of these over the course of 8 years, and I ran a couple of colleges as well. And this is not like an online one person calling themselves an academy. This was like a brick and mortar building with classrooms and hundreds of students passing through, and I was one of the teachers in 2 of these colleges. So I was kind of a new age rock star for a while, teaching personal development and emotional well-being and relationship skills and health skills.
Yeah.
And then I hit a bit of a glass ceiling, Richard. I was definitely following my passion. It was incredible, some of the best years of my life. And then I kind of got to a glass ceiling where I thought, who am I in the absence of all of this stuff that I've created around myself? It's easy to be spiritual when you're in the monastery, when you're surrounded by people who kind of believe your own bullshit in a way. And I felt like I needed to go somewhere where nobody knew me. This is after I'd reached a level of success. To go somewhere where nobody knew me, no one knew my background, no one cared, and just to see what was real, what was really real about me.
Mm.
Um,
And Russ,
I
I
also,
just want to jump in because there's something interesting you said. It's like,
yeah, yeah,
believing your own bullshit, right? And
yeah.
let's talk about that. So when did you get to that point where you're like, what I'm teaching is bullshit and these people believing me? Like, how did that go down, man, into your head?
It was interesting. It basically arose as a feeling inside. So I was, what was I, 28, 29, super enthusiastic, super keen, working miracles with people, like seeing miracles every day in my clinic and in my classroom. But after a while, I kind of wasn't feeling them. And also I was like thinking, gee, I'm this young kid who's teaching, 30, 40, 50-year-old people how to live life.
Mm.
And I think I need a bit more experience.
Ah,
And I decided to basically go and test myself. I wanted to test everything
yeah,
I
yeah.
knew because I felt I was untested. So it was just a growing feeling in me, which is how I knew that I had to move somewhere different.
Right, right. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so where did you go from there, man?
From there, I actually went back to geology at the time when the mining boom hit. And as a geologist, if you could spell geology, you could walk into this incredibly high-paying job. So I traveled all around the world for 8 years. And in the natural therapies game, it's mainly full of women.
Mm-hmm.
You teach a massage class, and there's one guy and 30 girls. And so I had a great understanding, a great ability to connect with women, but was looking for some good role models with men. I realized that was a missing piece. So I did that. I found an amazing group of guys across the world that I'm connected with now, and kind of rebalanced that piece in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent 8 years kind of traveling the world, doing a little bit of teaching, but mainly doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
And decided to call Bali home fairly recently.
No. Amazing,
So,
man.
yeah.
And we were talking about this off air before, Rusky, right? Is that, if and hanging around that many women, I mean, I'm sure that didn't happen by accident, right? But at the same time, you learned a lot. And then, I'm not sure if you something that you gave yourself or someone or all your friends and people who know you start calling you like a relationship expert, right?
Mm.
And so from there, talk us through that, right? And there's a really important point here because I'm like yourself, man. I get dubbed relationship guru, right? Because I used to do that stuff too. And then it's like you get in a relationship, and it's kind of like Tony Robbins as well, right? Where he's a relationship guru, and then he gets divorced, right? And
Right.
or like us, right? Like you go get in a relationship and then you break up, right? And you
Yeah.
don't feel like a guru so much anymore, do you? Right? You don't feel like an expert anymore. And talk us through about that experience, man, for yourself, because I know it's quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's super humbling. And in the last couple of years, I've just been so humbled. Just to clarify, I'm quite underground at the moment, Richard. I'm not. Relationships are my absolute passion. I'm a communications junkie. I've studied so much about men and women dynamics and communication and intimacy and sex and just general awesomeness.
Mm.
And kind of very much enjoyed the fruits of those studies myself, and helped a lot of my friends and some clients. And it's just my genuine desire to help people. That's kind of, some people call me a relationship expert. I'm not sure if I would call myself that, other than I've made more mistakes than most people's fair share, really.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's one thing that I've encountered, having had some measure of success, both financially and relationally, and with women and with life in general, is it's one thing to build up success. It's another thing to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be taken from you at any time.
Mm.
And so there's a deepening humility and humbleness that is required, I believe, when you step forward and offer to serve from your experience and from what you've learnt.
Mm.
And I'm certainly in that place right now, where, having built up a good measure of success, I've watched it nearly be taken away from me so many times, and have just had to come to terms with, well, this could just all go. And so who am I in the absence of all of that wealth? Who am I in the absence of that relationship which, you know, has kind of defined me? So there's a saying, be kind to the people that you step on the way up, because they're the people you'll meet on the way down. It's like there's a humility around greeting everyone as somebody who will look after you in the future, and looking after them the best that you can right now, whether they be business partners or friends or lovers or your partner or whatever. It's it keeps you very humble.
Yeah, man. And I can imagine that. And I think sometimes we go through these experiences so that we can learn, right? If we're going to be the teachers, right? Teachers also need to experience, and this is why it's so true, and this is why I believe experience outweighs, you know, qualification. Yeah, in some circumstances, in certain situations, qualification is required, but experience, you know, I'd rather go get a surgeon who's done like 100 surgeries, right? Than a kid who's got two PhDs out of university who's never touched a body, right?
Correct. Yeah, and that's right.
And so I think it's important that we go through these experiences. And I want to ask you here, you know, Russell, is like, when you go through these experiences, obviously, do you feel like as someone who loves learning about relationships and communication so much, do you try and push yourself to just rush through and say, it's fine, I learned a lot and this is what I'm going to do next time? Do you find that you get up in that?
Kind of, yeah. So there's always something to learn. People are fascinating, right? And if you can be fascinated with other people and yourself and have compassion for yourself and other people, I think this is one of the key pieces to, you know, people will always surprise you. You know, even when you think you've got them figured out, they'll continue to surprise you. And so having patience for people and being really willing to understand their world first ahead of your own needs is the absolute. If it was one piece that I could kind of offer people, and something that I found the most valuable, which comes with humility, it is putting aside your own needs and desires first and really taking the time to understand what the other person wants. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but but
I like what you're talking about. I like what you're talking about, because this is an idea and a methodology that, you know, I share a lot with my clients, especially when it comes to love. And you nailed it on the head here. That's why I got like super excited, like,
okay,
someone knows what I'm talking about, right? Is that it is all about the understanding. I think love is just understanding, and every time there's any kind of conflict or arguments or those kind of things, it's based off misunderstandings, right? And talk us through this here, Russell, is like, you know, what happens if, you know, you're the guy listening to this, you're the guy watching this, or the woman, right? And you don't understand, like you just don't understand your partner, right? What kind of advice would you give them? Like, you know, sometimes where you sit there and you're trying to listen, but they're not making sense.
So I guess that's one thing that I do, is I'm a translator. I wouldn't call myself a coach or a relationship expert, but I am a translator of helping men understand women and women understand men. So, pardon me, if you're a man trying to understand a woman, first of all, there's a few foundation pieces. If you're a man trying to understand a woman, you're probably first trying to get something, you know, whether it be sex or connection or approval or wanting to be friends with them, whatever it is. You know, or just to have peace in the house or whatever. Then be aware first of what you're wanting to get from, or what you're wanting from this. And if you can take the time away, do the self-work to be okay with a no. And what I mean by that is, like, let's take the common example of, you like this girl, you want to kiss her, you want to go out with her on a date, you know, you want to sleep with her, or you want her as a partner, whatever. Be okay with a no at any stage, so such that if you go and approach her and start chatting and she says, actually, no, I don't want to talk, make sure that you've done the mental prep beforehand to go, okay, I'm okay. If she says no, I'm not going to collapse and sob. I'm not going to try and say, hey, do you know who you're talking to? Just be cool. You know, you're okay, and rest, as my friend said, rest in your essential okayness, no matter whatever happens. Let's say that she's cool to talk to, and then you ask her out on a date and she says no. Rest again in your essential okayness of like, I'm okay if she says yes, I'm okay if she says no. It's no reflection on who I am, all the way up to, you know, wherever you want to go with it. And that way you release yourself from this unconscious trying to get something from this woman. Because she's going to sniff that out a mile away, right? That you're kind of coming in to get something. So if you can release yourself from that, immediately you relax, she relaxes, the interaction goes so much better. And then take the time and all that free energy to understand where she's coming from. What's important to her right now. What is, and especially with women, what is the feeling that she's emanating rather than the words? I think that's the common thing that men get stuck on is women, and this is a cliche and a generalization, but women tend to communicate with feelings and emotions. And if you can track those and reflect them back to her, she is going to feel heard. And that's what she's looking for, is connection with you. Not necessarily, you know, the specific request which she's making. So perhaps if I can give an example, if she says, she might say a generalization, like, or a sweeping universal statement like, you never ever do this, this, and this. And if you go into your head and go, well, actually, that's not true. Sometimes I do that, and sometimes I do this. You're sunk. You've listened to the words, and you're starting to argue on the words. You're dead in the water. She is upset, or she's not feeling connected with you. And so the way to go about it is to go, okay, it feels to me like you're really angry about something, or it feels like you're upset about something. Tell me more. Help me through this. So I get her to help you understand her world rather than, you know, negotiating the details. That is going to save you so much time and have her feel so much closer to you, and it's going to go so much better from there forward.
Wow.
And
I love that, man. And it's kind of like I recently came back from like a Tony Robbins event, right? And it's like, guys, you just got to focus on the V, right? And everyone is focusing. They're like, the V, Richard, really? We're talking about, and the V actually means vent, right? You got to focus on them venting, and all you do is just like Russell's saying, just you sit there, you go, you don't go and go on a defense, right? Like if you're saying you didn't take the rubbish out, it's like, you're talking about, I took it out last week and it's not even full yet. I don't need to do it. But he said, all we need to do is just sit there and take the stance, right? And just be like, okay, honey, tell me more. What's really bothering you? It's like, no, it's you in the rubbish. And then it's just, no, I know there's something more, right? And you can just continually open yourself up to that conversation. And that's what you're saying, right, Russell?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, it's another cliche that she's telling you in one way. She wants you can remember. Just wants to express it, express what she's feeling and be heard. Again, do not go into problem-solving mode. Do not listen to the words literally and try and solve the problem that is you're going to be dead and speak, and demonstrate that you are earnestly trying to understand everything first before you offer something back. And she's going to just appreciate that, you know, you're listening to her and being willing to stay with her through that ride.
And then, has there ever been a time, like in your own personal experience here, Russell, right, is where you sat there, you try to understand, and it's like, I still don't understand. And what do you do in those situations? And those guys, right, who are listening, who've been there and are there sometimes, what should they be doing then?
Totally. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. So as another friend of mine says, 8 times out of 9, you just stay present and listen. And the ninth time, if it's not going anywhere, you stand your ground and you say, look, this is not working. The way you're talking to me is not helping. It's not helping me. It's not helping you. I need some time out. Or then you go back to, and you state what it is that you need to be able to continue the conversation. Okay. So it's like, I just need 10 minutes to take a breath. Can we do that? And then I'll return and we'll continue this conversation. But right now, this is not working for me. And, you know, you have needs as well, you know, and you need to look after those needs through that conversation. Especially if you're doing it so that you can continue staying connected to her. If it's still in service of the partnership, then it is actually really important that you stand your ground and just declare what it is that you need, as well as like trying to understand what she needs.
Great advice, Russell. And there's one more question I want to ask right before we start wrapping up the show here. And this is something that's personal to me. It's like, what if you have a partner, right, who, you know, gets angry, and then, you know, you're trying to sit there and you're like, all right, honey, just tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on, right? And then she's like, you know, I don't want to talk about it, right? And, you know, I don't want to talk about it, right? How do you deal with that when she starts closing herself off and you're trying to open up and create this space for her to be, you know, open? What do you do? What is your advice on that front, man?
Yeah. So if she starts kind of shutting you down or putting up a wall. It depends. So it depends on how well you know her. Like if you, so you can do the pre. This doesn't help you in the moment, but it does help if you can set it up beforehand. Is if and when you're. So I'll give you something you could have done beforehand, and then I'll give you something to help in the moment. But beforehand, let's say you meet a girl or you're in a relationship and you're both in a good space. A great thing to do is to give each other your user's manual. Okay. And so you basically set it up like, hey, let's say that you've met this nice girl online, has just purchased a Richard Fu off Amazon.com. And what's in your instruction manual? Like, how does Richard need to be taken care of when he's angry, when he's upset, when he's hungry, etc. And get that off your sweetheart as well. So that, so you just ask her, like, what do you need how do you act under stress? For example, do you clam up? Do you rage? Do you disappear? And what happens? What do you need? Like when you're really angry, what is it you really need? Or if you just go into your room and close the door, what do you really need? So that you're forewarned and forearmed. Okay, like when she's just saying, don't touch me, I don't want to talk. You know that she just needs a big hug and to be wrapped up, and for you to tell her, hey, I'm here. I'm just going to be here. So ideally, that's kind of getting the keys to the kingdom before you go in. If you're in that situation, then I would simply acknowledge that, especially if you've been doing your best and you've kind of run out of resources. Say, just reflect back to her, look, I hear that you don't want to talk about this, and that's totally fine. I just want to let you know that if you change your mind, I'm here, and otherwise I'm gonna respect that. And let her cool down, let yourself cool down, and then revisit the conversation later when you're both in a good space. And that may take some flowers, that may take a bit of time, that may take kind of waiting for the opportune moment. But definitely bookmark it so that it doesn't remain unspoken for more than 2 days. There's
that's more like
one of my mentors had this great saying, and I'll throw this in terms of some of the best advice that I've ever been given around relationships. He said that most couples have the same 3 or 4 core issues which never leave the relationship. So if this is one of those, just relax, because in one sense, you're never going to work through this. It's just going to be a function of your relationship, and that's totally okay. Secondly, he said the couples that stay together have both a sense of humor, and they talk through things quickly rather than letting them linger for a long time. So the quicker and more humorously you can address that, the better time you're going to have.
Great advice, man. And especially I really like the one. I know I've heard that one before about how there's a core 3 or 4.
Yeah,
I don't know if you call it issues or something else, but things that will always, they're differences, right?
yeah,
Differences. And
that's right.
it's about, I guess, recognizing how big that difference is, I think, right? For
Yeah,
those core, and if they're actually, are affecting your own personal core values, right? And
yeah.
then that would determine the match. Would you agree?
Totally, totally, yeah. And I assume that if you're with her, then that you're willing to not endure, but the challenge. The art is artistry here, Richard.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to have two different sets of values, and you're as a superior man, your job is to make art out of that difference. The differences in those values, and how much fun can you have enjoying this difference with this other person rather than wishing it was all smooth sailing, because it never will be. It's like, how as an artist of my own life can I make this as much fun for myself and her as humanly possible? And you make art out of these challenges.
I like the way you put it, man. I like the way you put it. That's awesome, Russell, man.
Mm,
Man.
cool.
So we have to start wrapping up the show, man. I've enjoyed a lot in this session, man. Just chatting with you and just learning even more and just digging into your brain and pulling out the real gold and nuggets of diamonds, right, out of your own.
Totally. Yeah.
It's man, as we start wrapping up the show here, we're going to go into some quick fire questions, right?
Mhm.
And one of the questions we like to start off with, Russell, is the signature question of the time travel moment, right? If you could go back in any moment in your life, right, 10, 15 years, whatever, I don't really mind, but what moment would you go back to, and what is the one piece of advice you tell little Russell back then?
Oh, that's a great question. To believe in the fact that it will all work out in the end.
Yeah.
Just kind of that reassurance that you will find a way, because you always do.
Yeah.
So if there was a moment in time,
which part, yeah, would you go back?
which moment in time?
Yeah.
I think at any of the junctions in my life. Let me see. I think when I quit my corporate job for the very first time and took a leap into the unknown, it's like, I have no idea where I'm going, but I know I need to change. And yeah. And I think even recently, like maybe last year, 18 months ago,
Yeah.
I really needed that advice. And,
Is this before you moved to Bali?
I was in Bali at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
One of the second or third big changes in my life.
Ah, awesome, man. Awesome. Always on the edge, Russell. Always on the edge.
If you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room.
You're taking up too much room. Love it, man. Love it. And the next question I have here for you, Russell, is, I'm sure you've read a lot of books. I'm sure you've studied a lot about, relationships, communications. And what's the one book you think that people who are listening, who are watching, must read?
Look, I don't think you can go past David Data's Way of the Superior Man as just a general text for guys. Whether you agree with David Data or not, he will provoke you into an opinion and a response. And I think that is part of his great value. Incredible book. Easy to read, short little passages. Just pick it. I'm due to reread it again, actually.
Awesome. We'll add that to the show notes. I'm actually listening through that now at the moment too. And
okay, yeah.
so
I just did a workshop in Byron Bay with Michaela Baum, who was his co-teacher for 12 years. So it was incredible.
Wow, man. You got to tell me more about that after, man.
Sure.
Awesome. Wrapping up here, man, we got a few left here, Russell. This is a really important one. This is one of my favorite ones is, Russell, in the modern world we're living in right now, right? There's a huge demand. There's a huge gap. There's a huge hole that is starving, right? The world's starving for the modern man to step up, to do what it is that they're meant to be doing and really serving the modern world, right? And I feel that we've been left behind. And, from you, right, what do you think is the one thing the world really needs from the modern men who are listening to this show right now that would help them be more to the world and make that bigger impact and serve more people? What is that one thing that men are missing in the world they need to be doing?
The one thing is to get in touch with themselves, irrespective of what you're told to be as a man. And that, I think the process for that is to actually give yourself the gift of removing yourself from all the influence, as many influences as you can, and really sit with yourself. I'll give you two little stories, or one little story first, about a Taoist master who was wandering through a village that was being struck by famine, and it hadn't rained for ages, and they said, "Please, master, please help us change the world, change our climate." And the master said, "Sure," and he went into a small hut and didn't emerge for 3 days. And on the third day, it started raining. And the villagers came out and said, "Master, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. You brought the rain. How did you do that?" And he said, I did. He said, "I was just getting in touch with myself first and getting in tune with the environment. I didn't do anything." But by getting in tune with the environment of yourself first, from that place you can affect the right change needed in the world. Anything other than that, if you're being influenced by this guru or that guru, you're just as likely to miss your mark and misdirect your energies. So that would be my answer.
Amazing, man. I love it. And great story, man. Great story.
Yeah.
And just wrapping up here with the two final questions here, Rusky. All right, this one, I'm burning inside to hear your answer to this one. Right, so knock this one out of the park for us. Rusky is like, how would you define true love, man?
How do I define true love?
Yeah.
Whew. That is a big one. True love is something that holds you through your greatest doubts and brings you out into your greatness, whether that be something you hold within yourself or something you find in someone else. Ideally, true love is something you find inside yourself and then you can share with a partner or the world. It's definitely something that holds you steady through these gnawing doubts that we all experience and impels you to bring out your greatest gifts. Even if those greatest gifts are to be like a motorcycle mechanic in the back of some small town, you do that with all your passion and you will know undying happiness.
Man, beautiful, man. Aced it. You knocked it out of this world, man. And the last one here, Rusky, is if you had 30 seconds left to live, right, and you're surrounded by your loved ones, your family, your friends, all the people that you've made a significant impact on, whether you knew them or not, what's the piece of advice you'd leave them with?
Oh, the piece of advice. Okay. It's so funny because I was just thinking of my ex-girlfriend and I would just tell her how much I loved her or still love her. So the death question is really interesting. She's amazing. Piece of advice, I would say never stop loving, never stop being afraid to love. Just go at it with your whole heart.
Beautiful, man. Rusky, man, thank you so much for jumping on this show, man. It's an absolute pleasure talking with you, man. And
Cool.
so, man, for the people who are listening and watching, if they want to get in touch with you and what you do, man, where's the best place they can find you, Rusky?
Good question. For your audience, Richard, I'm super happy to give out my personal email. I'm underground at the moment. But if you want to contact me, you just have a chat or to get a session or whatever you want, then you can find me on rusty75@gmail.com. That's RUSSTY75@gmail.com. And at some stage in the future, I'll be releasing a podcast called Sex, Dating and Relating in Uncertain Times. And it's going to encapsulate all of the wisdom and all of the questions and answers I've managed to gather over the years, and some amazing experts as well who I'm proud to call my friends. So look out for that one.
Amazing, amazing, man. Cannot wait for that to come out. So then we'll add that into the show notes as well, man. So Rusky, once again, man, thank you for jumping on, man. I love this conversation. There's a lot of truth here, guys. There's so much truth here. And so thank you, brother, for jumping on.
Pleasure, mate. And thanks to everyone that's listening. Hope you have a great day.
Awesome. And guys, this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast here today with Russell Rusky Price. And I want to make sure you understand this, guys. Me and Russell do not want to keep this a secret anymore. Russell should not be underground. Put simply, Russell should not be underground. What we just shared here needs to see the light of day. And make sure you head on to iTunes and rate the show so that we can get his message out, and not just his, all the other people we've had on the show as well. Because these are the truth bombs that need to come out there and see the light of day. And of course, remember to head on over to richardfu.com to get the show notes. And finally, remember to go out there, go live with love, and go smash it. And I'll see you again on the next one. Bye.